Hi, this is Budo Aspect Sports TV. I'm takumi.yamanaka. Today's tema is why Khabib Nurmagomedov felt heavy. Khabib Nurmagomedov is a former MMA fighter and his record of 29-0 is outstanding. One opponent who fought him once said he felt incredibly heavy when he was on top of me. What was the real reason behind that feeling? In martial arts, the strongest form of defense is preventing your opponent from generating power in the first place. To do this, you must control the opponent's core, especially the spin and pelvis, so they cannot move freely. In sumo, Rikishi strongly pulls the opponent's mawashi with both hands. By doing so, the opponent's lower back and pelvis lose their freedom of movement. As a result, the opponent becomes almost completely powerless. In MMA, you often see fighters driving their opponents into the cage. The mechanism is exactly the same as in sumo. Once the hips and spines can no longer move freely, the opponent loses the ability to generate power. Khabib mastered this principle. If you look back at his fight, he almost always controls the center of the cage. Using high-level striking, he steadily drove his opponent towards the cage wall. When the timing was right, he pinned them there and took away their freedom of movement. Khabib did not fight his opponent's power, he erased it. After securing this position, he began to throw punches. Naturally, his opponent had almost no opportunity to counter-attack. In the early era of MMA, being mounted by an opponent usually meant the fight was over. However, in modern MMA, even from mount position, if there is space to move the spine or pelvis, fighters can escape or sweep. The underlying mechanism is the same. At the same time, giving up mount position also creates opportunities for submissions. Because of this, fighters change their mindset. Rather than trying to knock out opponent with a punch from mount, they now pursue submissions more aggressively. In Khabib's case, his goal was to shut down the opponent's center of gravity. This is why opponents described him as heavy. If their movement restricted, free motion became extremely difficult. In that condition, Khabib delivered devastating ground and pound skills developed significantly, often the rise of feather area end. Feathers approach relied on strong core engagement and upper body control. Today, fighters combine this with pressure on the opponent's core, either on the ground or against the cage. This allows them to strike powerfully without exposing themselves to counter-attack. In other words, by applying these principles, it becomes possible to overcome difference in weight class because the opponent is never given the freedom needed to generate power. Khabib applied this principle perfectly. He gave him the opponent no chance to counter-attack. When you look back at his fighting style, it is highly rational. Power is born from freedom. Khabib took that freedom away. This is Budo Aspect Sports TV. Thank you for watching.